Hello, everybody. It is July 13th, and this is the meeting for talking about community outreach for Backdrop CMS. We only have a couple of things on the agenda today. First and foremost, the website. We have currently working on a statistics block that is equivalent to, or roughly equivalent to the statistics block you see on Drupal.org. Jeff made a bunch of progress on that this weekend, so we're going to have the number of commits that have happened to both Backdrop Core and Contrib, the number of comments that are going on to both Core and Contrib, and the number of people who are contributing to Core and Contrib as a little 3-column block we can place on the homepage. He created a pull request, which worked great, except for that it depended on PHP 7, and so he's got a follow-up commit that removes all of the type hinting and function definitions so that it'll work on PHP 5.4, so we can use it on our live server, and then, or 5.6 or whatever the server's using now. And then I think Justin has also got a new server for us that's running PHP 7 that we can move to at some point in the future. I have to follow up on that issue so we can figure out what the holdup was, but I think there was some other problem unrelated to PHP version that was preventing us from changing the servers over. But anyway, we've got the block, and we'll put that on the homepage as soon as I push the latest changes. Other things going on, we've got Wes working on the new theme, but I don't know where that stands. He's been really busy the last few weeks and hasn't been able to give us an update. I have a feeling that probably means he hasn't been able to make any progress the last few weeks. So last we heard, that was pretty close, but I don't know realistically what that means right now. We have some other things that we could be doing, like if we wanted to rearrange the navigation to match our intended final destination, we could do that. We just need a little theming on the current drop-down menu in order to make it look nice in a drop-down format. But that could get done at any time. And then we are some Backdrop sites these days. So I would love to see that showcase part get built too. So depending on how that fits together with the new theme, it might be possible to do those in either order too, as long as we do it in a way that we're not going to have to redo it later. So lots of things to do, not a lot of progress other than this homepage stuff that we're working on right now. And oh, the homepage block stuff is also written in a way where it looks like we won't have to redo very much in the new theme. So if we kind of, every time we add something new to the site before the new theme goes up, if we just kind of think about it first, I think there's a way as painless as possible when we do have to do the switch over. And on the website, discussion going on about documentation stuff for probably will end up on the API site, but we have kind of a bigger picture plan for content on the Backdrop site and in other places like in newsletters and on Twitter or posting videos. We just haven't been very good at creating the content because most of us are code people and not content people. But if you want to see the big picture of our content strategy, there's an issue in the Backdrop CMS.org queue number 349. So if you want to help us write some content, that'll give you a good idea of what we need and where it should go, what medium it might be valuable in. Speaking of mediums other than the website, we have 2 things that we should be thinking about getting done content-wise for the next month. One of them is figuring out what we want in our next newsletter. And I think we have some community spotlight is our latest blog post. I think we wanted to do a highlight of community spotlights in the next newsletter so that we could say, hey, we're going to do community spotlights. If there's anyone in the community that you want to recognize or you want to know more about, let us know. We can kind of add them to a list. I think that might be a good kind of call to action where we can highlight the one we have and also solicit feedback for ones we don't have yet. But other than that, I don't have any ideas of what we should send in the newsletter. And it's July now. We're going to have a whole nother month before the next release of Backdrop. So I think it would be good if we could come up with something else that we need to tell people about. I think like the Civi CRM integration is kind of a big deal, and I would love if we could kind of focus on maybe a blog post and a newsletter that let people know about how that's going. I talked to Herb Duell about doing something, and he said he was interested in working on it, but I know he was also busy working on the Civi CRM integration itself, so that he wanted to do first. So I'll do another follow-up with him, but I think that might be a good opportunity if we wanted to do like a Civi CRM focused month of news. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think that we should definitely ping Jack about that, because they are excited about the Civi CRM stuff.
Jeff?
Jack.
Jack, okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Any other ideas for stuff we should do? Maybe not right now, but like upcoming, like what should we tell people about in terms of blog post, newsletter, other content?
With regard to the community spotlight, you said we want people to, how do we pick who those people are?
I mean, I like until somebody doesn't have a next person in mind, and then we need to have I mean, there's already a list on the main issue page. I think we've got some good people to start with, but I think it would also be good to kind of solicit feedback from the larger backdrop audience. Be like, oh, you know, do you have a friend that made a backdrop site and you want to know why they chose backdrop or something like that? That might be a good way to get feedback from people who might not normally contribute to, you know, be featured in a community spotlight sort of thing.
Okay. I
mean, I don't know what, like, I'm not sure we necessarily should expect to get a whole bunch of feedback from a newsletter. That's not usually a big avenue for communication, but I think making the newsletter sound like we're open to hearing that and sending them to an issue where it's like, please provide your feedback is kind of a good message to send, where it's like, hey, if you want to participate, this is how to do it, rather than just being like, hey, here's some more information.
Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out on that.
Okay. All right, well, is there anything else that we should talk about related to community outreach? Oh, maybe I should put,
well, I was going to ask, I mean, one of the community groups that I think we need to do a lot of outreach for is actual like web development shops. Do we have any that are using Backdrop? Because it seems like doing a profile of an actual company that's using Backdrop for its clients would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the ones that are listed as on our website as organizations seeking Backdrop work. I don't know how many of them actually have Backdrop work. There's a handful that do, and there's a handful of like converted their own sites to Backdrop and written posts about it. What we could do is we could do some more outreach to those people and see if we could get them involved in writing like blog posts on their own sites about Backdrop if they haven't already. And then that way we'd be getting news about Backdrop to an audience that we're not already reaching. So that could be useful.
Yeah, I was thinking something along the similar lines, Jen, that we could actually explicitly reach out to a whole host of Drupal shops right now and just basically reach out and say, like, how do you feel about Backdrop, you know? And like literally cold call like every Drupal agency that we know of, and just say, what are your feelings towards Backdrop? If you're in support of Backdrop, maybe you should go and create an account and make an agency on backdropcms.org, you know? And so literally solicit Drupal shops to say, are you interested in Backdrop? And go to all of these people that right now we haven't, like, we've only been like passively like allowing people to sign up and like tweeting and things like that, but we could actually actively go after agencies and try to get them to support Backdrop.
And you're referring to just putting their names and logos on the front page, or?
Well, yeah, and to make a not just supporter nodes, but also agency. What are they called? Organization nodes on
Yeah.
backdropcms.org.
So
'Cause right now-
supporters are put your logo on the homepage, but agency, like a organization profile, lists you in a list of companies that are actively seeking backdrop work. And I think what we could do at this point is like remove the supporter list from the homepage and put the companies seeking backdrop list on the homepage, and that would be fine. But I think it's hard to find that list of companies right now because
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
This is news to me. I'm like, wow, we have that now.
It was a little bit easier before we reorganized the menu because you could get there in the drawer or on the landing page or something. But I think we just need to find a way to give them more visibility to make that more valuable.
Yeah, but we don't need to have it be particularly valuable before we ask people to create content for it. You know, like we don't really need to explain the value too much. I don't think really.
Well, I mean, I think it is, if we're asking them to do something, like I think like saying, hey, if you sign up, you'll get your, company logo on the front page of our site seems like incentive for them to do so.
Yeah.
Right. That's definitely would be true as well. Okay. Well, I would be down.
Okay. So
with
one
that
thing,
change, but I don't think the homepage update could be need to be a limiting factor.
Yeah.
So we've been really careful so far to not try and be advertising to people in the Drupal community like we want them to want backdrop. So like if we're going to be cold calling people, it needs to be done tactfully. Like it can't be like, put your stuff on our website, and then people are going to be like, oh my God, backdrop called and they were, demanding that we help them and whatever. Like I think it needs to be like reach out to people at organizations, ask them how they feel, like not very cold call-y. Like more like check in and see if they are aware of opportunities.
Right.
Because like if we start stomping really hard in the Drupal community, that's not going to be good for us or them.
Yeah. And obviously we should curate that list and be cautious. We don't want to end up with a, red hat of Drupal type situation.
What does that refer to?
Sorry. I mean, when an Acquia salesperson reached out to Automatic to ask if they wanted to do Drupal services, and it's like, anyway, that's what I mean.
All right. So what does this process look like? Is it just like, because right now there's 3 of us that know that this is an idea, and maybe 1 person that's watching the video. But
hi, person. How's it going? Thanks for watching our video.
Maybe there will be more later. So how do we make this happen? Like, we're like, oh, hey, we should do it. Like, is this like now all 3 of us leave here and like email our friends and be like, hey, have you heard of Backdrop? Or is this like something where we need to create a ticket and be like, here are a list of companies that need to be contacted, and we need to have like individual, like, does anyone know anyone at Lullabot? Maybe we should have Nate talk to them.
Ooh, I know some.
Is this something that Facet could help us with, Jen? Or is this,
what do you mean by help us with?
Basically take on the role of like contacting people?
Maybe. I'm not sure we want it to come from them.
Yeah.
Not with like a Facet interactive like footer in their email or something like that, but perhaps I see what you're saying. Just the from address should probably be.
So you're thinking, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think like we don't want it to seem like we've hired an advertising agency to go out and get content for our website for us.
Yeah, but it would be no problem if they, maybe this is another problem. It'd be no issue if they were like marketing director for Backdrop or something like that, or, something along those lines where, I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit more tasteful if it's coming from somebody that has a position within the Backdrop community rather than somebody that has been hired. And since these people haven't been hired, it's really more of like a community outreach rather than a.
But I don't think anyone's going to know whether they're hired.
Here's the deal. I think that is better if like people who know people there reach out personally first. So I mean, I think your idea of creating a ticket would be good. I think in that ticket we could write down a list of all the Drupal shops we know and who knows people there, and then people can say like, I'll reach out to this thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think also we should come up with a list of the things that we're asking for. I think that just making sure that someone or multiple people at the organization are signed up to our newsletter would be a start. And then sort of ask like, hey, would you be willing to have your have a profile on our site? And hey, would you be willing to do a blog post on your site? So basically just come up with a script of increasingly invasive things to be asking them.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not. You made it sound terrible, but I think that that's completely reasonable.
Then my mission is accomplished.
but that's what I was going for. Is basically let's try to make sure that we have somebody assigned as responsible for outreaching and make sure that we don't double up on things. And I thought that maybe having one person assigned to do everybody would just minimize that potential problem.
Oh, that's a lot of work, though. I think, having people sign up to, we have these meetings every 2 weeks, and say, hey, why don't you sign up and contact someone within the next 2 weeks, and give them an actual deadline, please contact someone at this organization by then, and you can just put your name in the ticket for be responsible for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, not to muddy the water as far as community spotlight's concerned, I know right now it's on individuals that we're identifying. Could it be along the lines as well as a community spotlight as far as focusing on somebody who's using like a Drupal shop or somebody who's made a backdrop site and make that a community spotlight story as well? Or is that too broad?
No, that's what my original suggestion was, to actually do a community spotlight of one of these Drupal shops.
Because that would make it easier for me to pick. Sometimes it would be a member, sometimes it would be a shop, sometimes it would be a site.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's going to get to be real slim pickings pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think anyone who's anything that's part of the community, it would be fair game. And I think that's development shops. I think it's people. I think it's hosting companies. I think it's anyone who is invested and has an interesting backdrop story should be allowed to share it.
Okay. And what I don't know is who those people are. So that's where...
Well, that's where we're coming up with this list from. We'll help you.
It would, tremendously so. I mean, I don't mind reaching out and talking to people and making a story and helping them. I think asking them to come up with a blog post on their own, they may or may not do that, where if they have somebody helping them out, they may be more willing to say, hey, here's the information, and I could write it up for them. Or is that making it too easy?
No, I think that we should have a variety of different ways for organizations to contribute. And whether it's writing a blog post or just being interviewed for one of these community spotlights, or having an organization page, putting one of their sites in the site spotlight area. It seems like there's plenty of different ways that I think it's just important that we get actual development shops into the mix. So it's not just like a personal hobby project. We're actually building something that professional web developers are actually using for their client sites.
Yeah, and I agree totally. And these, I mean, I can knock these things out in a half hour. It's not that big of a deal, and it's always not going to be the same questions that are being asked. I'll have to think of it a little bit more broadly as far as shops are concerned and what type of questions to ask them. All I need are leads. Even if it's just a suggestion that I think this would be a good person to contact. I don't know who those contact people are.
Well, apparently we have a section on our website which is a list of organizations who are supporting Backdrop.
That's true. Do we have a way for those people to be contacted through our website?
I think so.
We're all looking.
Work services is the URL. Maybe we just link to their website.
Well, well, I guess every one of those websites, they have a way to contact somebody at those companies. So
Yeah, but then again, we also probably know people and can give. That's why, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you could provide me with a name or a contact or something like that. I guess I'm just not. I'm pretty new to this organization, so I have no problem calling somebody, emailing, or making contacts. But I can't just say, "Oh, here's Young Globes." Okay, I don't know those people.
Got it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the organizations are probably people who are like interested in doing backdrop sites but probably even haven't done one yet. So we sort of need to find the wheat and the chaff of the organizations who actually have built a backdrop site for their clients.
Exactly.
And have enjoyed the experience. Or have constructive feedback.
I found it. Okay. All right. Well, that's
I'll
what.
create an issue after this meeting.
Okay.
Or do you want to create the issue, Tom?
I certainly can try.
That would be great. One other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, there's this huge conference called Web Summit. And this year it's in Lisbon in November. They have a US-based version that's slightly smaller that's in New Orleans called CollisionConf. And on a whim, I applied for, they have this like startup track where they give you a table on the conference room floor for one day instead of for like the whole conference. So it's like a sponsor booth, but you only get one day of sponsor booth. And then they give you 3 tickets to attend the event. And then you get invited to all of these like networking things where you basically get to go and pitch whatever it is that you have. It's not limited to only startups. And so I applied for it and was like, hey, we have this software product. It's fantastic. It's open source. We don't have a business. We're not a startup, but I want people to know about it. And the lady that I was talking about was like, oh, this is a perfect candidate for this program. And then they accepted me. But then there was like this huge cost of, I don't know if it was the ticket cost or something, where it was just like, oh my God, you had to sign up in 3 days. I'm like, we can't raise that much money in 3 days. But I wanted to talk about doing the same thing for the US-based conference in 2018, where I think we're equally likely to be accepted into this program for the US-based conference. It's going to be much more affordable to get to New Orleans than it is to get to Europe. And if we knew ahead of time that we were going to do it, we could raise money from sponsors to send us there.
What is this conference called again?
CollisionConf.
Okay, because I thought you said Kalishnikov, and I'm like, that sounds violent.
No. It does sound a little, I mean, even collision doesn't sound, anyway. But one of the major advantages of this conference is like, it's not a web specific conference, it's just kind of a technology conference. The Web Summit in Europe is a little bit more web based, but they also do like apps and a whole bunch of other stuff. But there's a ton of PR that you get by being a part of it. Like they have like newscasters that come and report on new things. And there's a whole bunch of people that are just coming through to like write stories for TechCrunch and whatever. And I think that just the number of people like passing through who would see it that are completely different from the kinds of people that we would normally reach might be super valuable to have a backdrop booth at this kind of event. And it wouldn't be like a booth at a Drupal event where it's like a sponsor and you're like, I don't know, it just felt like a kind of a different kind of thing. So I wanted to throw it out there and see how everybody felt about going to something like Collision and having a booth and getting involved in all of these like PR efforts. And I thought that might be a good boost for Backdrop to get out there. Does anyone have any like major reservations about doing something like that?
Sounds good to me. And we should probably look for other conferences that we can go to as well. I mean, the more we can go to, the better. Obviously, there is a cost involved with getting there, but if we can get some sort of like discount or free tickets to get in, then that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and especially some of these big tech conferences have huge entrance ticket prices. And so that was why I originally applied to Web Summit. So I'm like, oh, I'd like to go to this Web Summit thing, but wow, it's really expensive. And I was like, oh, look, they have this thing specifically for like having a booth that would, get you publicity and whatever. And I'm like, that would be great. And they're like, you're accepted. And I was like, what? I'm like, but you need to buy this ticket in 3 days. What? Okay.
So what was the ticket you had to buy then?
So I think it's specifically for the startup track, which was basically like you're buying your booth space.
So did you get a discount on it? What was the application for then?
Yeah, so the application was to be accepted to this thing where you get 3 conference tickets, which I think were like $750 each, plus the booth space, plus they usually charge for access to like all of this, like every event. Like if you want to go to the dinner on Friday, that's more. You want to go to the party afterwards, that's more. And it was just like kind of a package of like all of the stuff that they normally charge for. And then there were 3 people's tickets, so we could decide which 3 people wanted to go to any event.
And then it was like a reasonable price.
It was a lot. It was enough that I couldn't just buy it like out of my personal money. I think it was like $1,500 or something, and that was not including like airfare to get to Europe. And I'm like, I'm happy to pay the airfare, but I don't think I can pay for everything. And so then when I was like, well, they have this similar conference in the U.S. and the airfare is much cheaper, and if I think we can actually get it, like we could plan ahead. So $1,500 is totally worth it for the amount of press, but I'm not having been there and knowing exactly value of that. It's kind of hard where it's like Drupal events are free and this one is not, but there's a lot more people, but they are people, but I don't know. So I think it would be a good thing to experiment with, but not at the cost of going to Europe and having it not work.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys are generally not like, no, that's not a conference for us, I think that's good. I will definitely plan on applying for the same track at Collision Conference this year when that is available. I just noticed they announced this week that they're planning for Collision Conf 2018. So I was like, okay, I'll ask you guys and then be ready when that opens.
It's definitely worth exploring.
What was that?
I said it's definitely worth exploring.
Okay. Anything else we should talk about in this meeting? Okay, let's wrap this and then some of us will meet again in half an hour to talk dev strategy stuff.
Good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.